Oh, hey there. I didn't see you there while I was relaxing here with my banjo after a long morning of chopping wood and hunting vermin. But since you're here, I suppose I'll show you my new library for making music from Clojure data. You know, as you'll see, the real power comes when you combine it with an InstaREPL, because when you're writing music in an InstaREPL, it's about the closest I have found to the experience of playing a real instrument. Now, you may be asking, Zach, you're such an accomplished banjoist. Why make music from code? You know, why not play a real instrument? And I do concede that real instruments still have more sex appeal. You know, in my own experience, chicks still dig my banjo more than my InstaREPL. But that's because they're not living in the future. Alright? And that is why I start every Tinder conversation now by saying, I want to serenade you with my InstaREPL. And then I unmatch them before they get a chance to report me. So, let's get started. What you gotta do first is let's check out the GitHub here. On the GitHubs, this is Edna. Okay, a Clojure data to music library. Now, the first thing you need to know is that it's based on another Clojure library, which frankly you should probably just use directly, and that's Alda. Okay, Alda is really awesome. If you haven't seen it yet, then just stop this video and look at it. And you also may have heard of Overtone, which is probably more popular. I prefer Alda, and here's why. Number one, Alda is a pure JVM library. Okay, Overtone, you know, it's got this big native dependency you got to worry about. Kind of makes it harder to embed it and stuff, and just more work to get it up and running. Alda, it's so simple to use, but also, you know, I don't really care about low-level sound synthesis. Okay, I don't want to make sine waves and shit like that. All I want to do is say, okay, here's an instrument, play these notes, end of story, right? Well, I didn't realize until later what I really wanted was MIDI music, and that's what Alda does. It lets you make MIDI music from code. Now, in the case of Alda, you can either use Clojure functions, or you can use this little markup language that comes with it. And that's really cool. I think for non-programmers this might be better. But, you know, I thought to myself, what I want is to make music from data. Okay, there's this trend going on in the Clojure world where we just represent a problem as data, and then at the last step we convert it into something else. So Hiccup does this with HTML, same as all those React wrappers like Reagent. HoneySQL does this with SQL queries. My game library, PlaySeal.js, does this with game development. You know, just represents the scene as data. And so why not do it with music too, you know? So that's what Edna does. It just adds that little layer on top of Alda. And there are a few ways to get started. It's already built into Nightcode because I like to bundle my projects together, give myself a little bit of vendor lock-in. But for now, I'll just do it on the command line. So you can just copy that little command there, and go into where you want to create your project and run that command. This is going to generate a little project template. It should be just a couple seconds, and this will just set things up a little bit for you. So as you can see, it creates a little boot project here, and what I'm going to do is just boot run. Okay, and if you were a child in the 90s and played games, you're going to recognize the tune that's about to play. It has to warm up though. Do you recognize it? So let's hop into Nightlight here. It's pre-configured with Nightlight, which is my editor, and that's because I want to use the InstaREPL. Okay. So so that tune you just heard is from Final Fantasy VII, and this is what it looks like. Okay, this is what the file starts off with. It's just got this data here, which it might look similar to Hiccup style data, and down here this just takes care of playing it. Now this is the InstaREPL, so all I got to do here is click this and it plays. Okay, so before I get into all of that stuff, I'm gonna comment this out, and I'm gonna make a different one here which just plays the C note. Okay, you hear that? So by the way, when I was just typing just now and it kept stopping and playing, that's because the InstaREPL evaluates every time I type anything, and that might actually get annoying. So if you want, you can just comment that out, and now you can see it's not playing anymore. But let's uncomment that. All right, so this is the simplest score you can write. You know, it's just playing a single note. But of course, you can go beyond that. You can type in more notes, right? By default, the notes play at the 4th octave, and I think they're quarter length notes. And so you can just keep typing, notes like that, and they'll play in succession. Now, the first thing you might want to do is change the octave. So to change any kind of attribute in Edna, you just use a map. So I'm going to create a little map, and I'm going to say octave 3. Okay, so that went to a lower octave, went to a higher octave, and you can put these maps anywhere. So I'm going to cut that out and only make the last note. Okay. Now, another thing that you can adjust is the length of the note. Like I said, by default they're a quarter length. Maybe I want them to go a bit longer, so I'll do a half length. Now this is actually the shorthand syntax. Like, if I wanted to write it out, I could just be like length 1/2. But I found that you need to change the note length so often, I need to provide a shorter way of writing it. So for that, you can just write the number. And again, it only affects the things that come after. So if I cut this and I put it right here, it only affected that last note. Alrighty. And one more thing about syntax here. If you only want to change the octave of one note, and you can actually do a relative change by just doing like plus. And then I'll try minus. And you can actually go more than that, like I can do -2. See that? But again, because it's inside like this, it will only affect this note. So if I do another note, right, it only affected this one. So what you just saw there is like most of what you need to know to get started there. Whoops. There are other things, like there are other attributes like tempo that you can adjust. Like you can see up here, it's set the tempo. But you obviously don't need to really care about that right now. So, oh, actually there is one more thing I forgot. So let's go back to just 2 notes here. So the question is, how do you make a chord, right? Well, in Edna, all you have to do is put the notes inside of a set. That's simple. You can add whatever notes you want, and of course you can change their octave if you want. And all those other things that I showed you apply here. So, you know, you can change the length of the chord, make it a whole note. So, so anything inside of a set plays simultaneously. And the really cool thing about this is that it's not just individual notes. You can put an entire piece into a set. So, for example, I'm going to make this not a chord again, and I'm going to after the piano plays, I'm going to say do the same thing. Whoops. And then do guitar. But what if I want them to do those 2 notes at the same time? Well, all you got to do is, isn't that cool? So what happened there is these 2 pieces are inside of a set, so Edna says I'll play both of them at the same time. And you can make those anything you want. Banjo. And so those basic primitives you can build up into really complex pieces. So that's pretty cool. Now let's go back to Ari's theme. God damn it. That thing is going to annoy me. So, one thing that will probably get annoying is every time you make an edit, the whole thing plays again, right? And there are a few ways that you can fix that. So if you just want to, so obviously you can comment stuff out. You can just do this, right? That's one thing you can do. But when the piece gets really long, that's going to still be pretty annoying. So there's an attribute called play. It's a Boolean attribute, and by default play is set to true. But if I do play false, you can see the music stops playing. Now, why is that useful? Well, I can put the map right here and say play true. So this is really useful for zeroing in on just the part that you want, because it's just an attribute map, so it follows the same rules that you would expect. So I'm going to cut that, and let's say I only want to play these 4 notes here. Well, I can just wrap them in a vector and then do play true. See? So the attribute maps, it's just the, like, normal scoping kind of shit, right? This play true only applies to these notes because it's wrapped in a vector like that. If I got rid of the vector, watch this. And well, now play true applies to these things as well. So this is a really good development tool, basically. Just setting play to false at the top, and then setting it to true in the one little portion that you're working on right now really helps with development. So there's a lot more, but really, like I said, if you want to get deeper into this, you might want to look into Aldo directly, but I think this is powerful, especially if you're already experienced with Clojure, because it will let you use all of the stuff that you already know, right, about Clojure. There is one more thing, so let me comment that out again. So the whole point, obviously, of using Clojure data is that then we can just use normal Clojure functions to manipulate it. So if I go back to piano C, well, what if I do repeat 3? You can just do stuff like that. I'm going to repeat, so you can repeat that chord. And of course you can do it for you know, entire pieces if you want, like maybe stop annoying me. Let's do guitar. So anyway, there's a whole lot of fun stuff that you can do here, but unfortunately I'm not musically inclined enough to actually give a good demo of this stuff. And you may be wondering, why is someone who's really shitty at music making a music library? And I suppose that's a question for the philosophers. So anyway, I hope you like it, and if not, then screw you.